to do some what we've been watching shenanigans?
Yeah,
If you have actually been watching anything apart from the inside of your eyelids.
I did before I was struck down. I did, yes, I did manage to, and I've been catching up on stuff this week as well because I hate that feeling of like, it's not that you're falling behind because obviously whose time limits am I working to other than my own, but it's just this thing where you've got a plan in your head and you know what you want to watch, then obviously that's just inconvenient. I did watch Ludwig, obviously, which you recommended, which I absolutely loved. It was like the perfect TV for me, and I realised that each episode is just like murder puzzle solved, but it was so good. Like he's just, I love David Mitchell, and I just thought he was so good in that, and the fact that he was using his wee crosswords to work out all this stuff. And I particularly like the episode on the building site because none of the builders took him seriously, but he was able to still piece it all together. Just perfect. I've told everyone about it. I absolutely loved it, so thank you for that.
Yeah, I like the way that they have more than one sort of guest star that's known. So you can't just go, oh, it's that guest star, they're the one that actually did it, you know. So they mix it up a little bit that way. And obviously there was a story that went right through the whole 6 episodes, which was nice. But didn't take up too much of the running time, apart from, I think, the last episode. It was kind of more of a focus. But it has been renewed now.
Has it?
Yep, so it is coming back. Apparently it's been a massive hit for the BBC, so they're...
Oh, no wonder.
They're well interested in getting some more mileage out of it, which is really good because, I particularly liked it as well. I think it doesn't take an awful lot to put it together, so it may be back sooner rather than later.
Oh, that's so, honestly, that's so good because I really liked it. I thought Anna Maxwell Martin was really good in it as well because obviously she was kind of helping him sort of piece together everything. And I just, as I say, I get that the episodes themselves were quite formulaic, but I did just really enjoy it. And it is that sort of perfect autumn. You're sitting with a blanket and a cup of tea and you're just watching, because it's not challenging to watch. You know, so it's, I really, really, I enjoyed that. That was such a good recommendation. Counter to that, Simi recommended Ambulance, which is 2 hours and 20 minutes of my life that I'm never getting back. So it was just, I remember messaging you guys and it was like, we'd counted something like 30 cuts in a scene that lasted less than a minute. It was terrible. It was really badly acted. I don't know what Jake Gyllenhaal was thinking. And like the story in itself was fine. It was just the direction, the script, the acting and everything else that was really terrible. So he's not getting a Christmas card for that one. It was really, really bad.
On the back of that, I actually watched it as well.
Did you?
Yeah, and it's
it's so long as well. I think that's what I was struggling with. I was like, surely this is a 90-minute film tops, and it just kept going.
Even then, it felt rushed as well. So I kind of I don't know why. Like I say, it was so formulaic and everything as well. Just you knew exactly what was going to happen and how it was going to happen. But it was
just a really, really terrible contribution to cinema. But anyways, for Belfast Film Festival, obviously, which I was able to cover remotely for Moviescamble, I watched Windless, which was a Bulgarian film about a young man who has to go back to sort of tiny village because his father has passed away and he's been away working in Spain and obviously earning money and stuff like that. And it was a really beautiful piece of cinema, actually. It really sort of took my breath away because it was very sort of sad and reflective, but at the same time there was like a lot of joy and warmth in it. And it was shot in quite an unusual sort of aspect ratio as well, so everything felt really tight. You kind of felt like you were sitting sort of shoulder to shoulder with everybody when they were all around the big family dinner table. But I just thought it was a really, really nice piece sort of reflecting on kind of what home means, I guess, and what it means to come home. So I thought that was a really nice piece of cinema. I also watched Armand, which is part of Belfast Film Festival, which stars Renate Rentz, if I'm saying her name correctly, from The Worst Person in the World. I like the principle of it. It's a single location. Woman gets called into school because she's been told that her son has assaulted a fellow pupil. And it's the sort of tension of these parents and teachers in the room. But it just didn't quite work for me. There's like a couple of mad dance sequences that sort of appear out of nowhere, which sort of take you out of the tension of the film, because as I say, the premise is really good. It's a sort of old school, the heating's broken, so everyone's roasting. There's like sweat dripping off and everyone's really tense because obviously it's a he said, she said in terms of one parent accusing, one parent defending their child. And I don't know, her performance was good. The film sort of fell apart for me, so I was quite disappointed in that as well. And I also watched Ephes as part of Belfast Film Festival, which is about a little team of sort of rec league baseball players who are having their diamond shut down. It's going to be built into I think it's like a school or some flats or something like that. So they go and play one last game. And it's one of these films where I suspect it will frustrate a lot of people because nothing happens. But it's just a really beautiful sort of, you're left wondering what's going to happen to them because it's just a group of sort of middle-aged guys, and clearly this is the only time they have with each other to come and talk and all that. And they try to do trash talk with each other, and it's just really bad and really funny. And it's just, I guess, a little slice of kind of small town life where you just wonder what will happen to these characters moving forward. So that was really nice. I also watched Let Go on Netflix, which is a Swedish film about a woman who doesn't tell her family basically that she's terminally ill. And I sobbed my way so bad through the last half hour that I couldn't actually read the subtitles. So I had to go back and watch it again. It was really well acted and really, really, really well written, actually. A sort of kind of family drama, just sort of staying away from cliches and kind of hits home. Obviously, it's quite an intense subject, but I thought it was really well done. I rewatched Train to Busan. I've watched that in a wee while. I really enjoyed that second time round, actually. I think the first time round I watched that during lockdown, and that perhaps wasn't the right frame of mind to be watching something like that. But I watched it again and really, really appreciated how good it was. I thought it was excellent. The performances are fantastic. And, just that wee song she sings at the end when she's walking through the tunnel. It was a bit watching that. So I also watched Women of the Hour, which I believe Simi has watched. I thought it was good, but I had my issues with it. I understand that they've come out and said they're sort of trying not to glorify true crime and they're not, going into the sort of nitty gritty or lingering on anything. But I felt like that almost made things too surface in other areas as well. Anna Kendrick's performance is great. Her, this is her directorial debut. It just didn't quite work for me. And the last thing I watched, which I'm actually under embargo for, is called The Helicopter Heist, which is coming to Netflix at the end of this month. And when I tell you it's one of the best binge watches I've ever had, I'm not exaggerating. I genuinely think this might be one of the best bits of television that I've watched all year. Based on a true story, so I think it was back in the early 2000s, 2009 I think it was. There was an attempt to rob a bank vault in Stockholm by landing a helicopter on the roof of this building. And this is obviously like their interpretation of what happened. But I swear to God, so good. Highly recommend when that comes out at the end of the month. Very, very tense. There was a couple of episodes where I was like actually gripping onto my blanket thinking, where the hell is this going to end up? So really, really good. So I have been watching that. A couple of books that I've read as well. I'm Sorry You Feel That Way by Rebecca Waite, which I actually think might be my book of the year. That really spoke to me on a personal level. And it was a couple of times where I was like, I've lived exactly that situation. So I just think that's one of the best books I've read. I've also read The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova, which is a sort of Dracula origins novel. Apparently it was book of the year a few years back. I haven't read a book that long in quite a while, so it was nice to actually get stuck into something that was like 700 and odd pages. So interesting sort of origin story. And I've also read the new Joe Nesbo book, Blood Ties, which is a follow-up to The Kingdom. So that revisits the Opgard brothers and their sort of tiny village and how they're basically bumping everyone off and getting away with it, which always seems to be the way in these books. And I also read The Burning Stones, which is the new Anti-Tuo Mainen. So anyone who likes that sort of Coen brothers type of murder mystery oddity, his new book is out and it's a fairly decent read.
Wow, I'm busy. Yeah, excellent.
Yes, I have been making up for lost time.
Yeah, so myself, I've been still involved in the Kirky Cinema, which is actually doing a wee bit better over the last couple of weeks. We had a screening of Scream 4 at a local high school, which went down very well.
Nice.
We sold a lot of sweeties and stuff, and it was really good and everything, so that was quite interesting. We also did a regular one for, it was Inside Out 2 and Twisters, so I hadn't seen Inside Out 2 before, so that was really good. I really enjoyed that. It's a real cracking film. I know that you had enjoyed it when you'd watched it and everything, and it had been getting sort of universal praise right across the board, but I hadn't seen it, and I thought, it's absolutely splendid, really good. It's very clever in the way that it did it. You know, when they're talking in terms of sort of mental health and relating it to things that you can actually see on the screen. I thought that was really, really good, obviously with chasms and things like that. So I thought that was particularly good, and it seemed to go down very well. Otherwise, I saw Heretic, the new horror film.
That?
It's really good. It's basically a three-hander, which I was not expecting at all, and it's really based within one house. But there are also obviously multiple rooms in the house. But Hugh Grant is phenomenal in it. He is I
feel like he's having such a interesting second stage of his career, because for so long he was just sort of like the British kind of romance character or whatever, but now he's doing this, like, you know, Paddington 2, a very British Scandal, is that what it was called?
Yes, yeah.
And then like stuff like this. He's having a really interesting career at the moment.
He is, and what I particularly like about it, just in sort of visual terms, is he's not pretending, or he's not trying to be younger than he actually is. Especially in Heretic, he is made up in such a way that he looks like a 60-year-old man. He doesn't look like a film star. I know in real life he is slightly different to that. He does obviously have the grey hair and everything now, but he is not vain in a way that a lot of actors of the same age are, in terms of, I can't be seen like that on screen, not
soft lighting.
Yeah. So it's not like that at all, and his performance is excellent. He is a very creepy presence without being like sort of overly creepy. Yeah. It's not that type of performance, and he pulls it off so well. Just really, really good.
I need to get tickets to go see it. It looks
the film is really clever as well, because it talks a lot about religion and goes into sort of history of religions and things like that, just as part of the conversation, because basically he's invited these two Jehovah's Witnesses, these two girls, into his house to talk about religion, because apparently people fill in cards if they're interested in talking about it some more, and then they go and they do a follow-up visit, and this is the sort of start-off point of it, and it's well worth your time. It's definitely a creepy little film, but not like completely over the top.
Yeah.
So and it builds up really well. So yeah, it's an excellent wee choice. That I also saw Super/Man, the Christopher Reeve.
Oh, I really want to see that as well. Is it good?
Yeah, it is. It's very good. We are now in a sort of age where, when they're doing biographies and documentaries about people, there is a ton of footage to be had, because he came to the fore sort of late 70s with Superman. Already there was like home video cameras and everything. It wasn't just like sort of, 8mm film that a lot of people tended to have, especially people who were involved in sort of arts and everything, a lot of these home movies. But there's a wealth of sort of background information, like visual information about him as well. And it uses his accident as the sort of starting off point.
Right, okay.
That's right up front, the very beginning. The sort of circumstances surrounding his accident, when he was thrown from the horse, and he was saying, I mean, there was a nice wee bit there. It said that if he'd fallen off the horse and his injury had been 1 inch to the left, he would have got up, and it would just been a bit of an embarrassing fall and a bit of a shake for him. But if it had been 1 inch to the right, he would have died instantly.
Oh, fuck.
So it was one of these ones, obviously it left him paralyzed, but it was such a bizarre accident to have, and to be able to actually survive from it, it would have been sort of, it's almost like an all or nothing sort of a situation. And it goes back, and it goes through his career, his life, his family life and all that, and there's a lot of talking heads from the members of his family and everything as well, and it is really kind of tragic. It's the way that obviously plays out is tragic, and the circumstances with his surrounding family as well. But obviously he was so well liked and everything, and he got like a standing ovation at the Oscars and all sorts of things, like only like about 7 or 8 months after his accident. It's unbelievable. But it was a really interesting documentary, because it kind of showed like the person behind the accident and what he was like and everything as well. And I think it came across as being relatively true to life as well. It wasn't just a sort of hagiography, because it didn't paint him as a saint. It painted him as a real person, so there was good points about him and there was bad points about him and everything. But yeah, it was excellent. It was really, really good. I was surprised because I didn't really know what to expect from it. I hadn't read anything about it beforehand. So yeah, that was pretty decent as well. Also watched Juror Number 2, the new Clint Eastwood film.
Yeah, I feel like this has come up out of nowhere. I feel I've not heard a thing about this, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's a brand new Clint Eastwood and it stars Nicholas Hoult and Toni Collette, like quite big names, and yet I've not heard a thing.
Well, part of the reason behind that is because in America it has just been pushed onto Max, the streaming service. It hasn't had a cinema release, but it's had a cinema release in other areas. I don't know if it's worldwide outside of the US, but it's getting one in the UK, and it's not been heavily publicised. When I went in to see it, I didn't realise before the titles came up that it was actually a Clint Eastwood film, because it came up and said a Malpaso production. I was like, oh, that's Clint Eastwood. Oh, that is Clint Eastwood. Okay, because he's the only one who does Malpaso films. So yeah, it's decent. It's a little predictable, but it is actually a fairly decent film. It's interesting. Toni Collette and Nicholas Hoult on screen again together after About a Boy, which they were mother and son in that film. So it is a pretty decent thriller. So it's worth watching. It's not going to blow your socks off or anything, but considering like Clint Eastwood is in his 90s now, he's still directing films of that sort of level. It's quite impressive.
And has he written it as well, or is this an adaptation of something? Or
I'm not sure at all. I think it kind of smacks of being an adaptation or something, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I didn't look into it that deeply. I also saw The Room Next Door, the Pedro Almodovar English language film.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really, really good. It's set in New York and sort of New York State, but it was all filmed in Madrid and just outside of Madrid. Which, and I didn't realise that. They did I think they said they did about 10 days filming in it. And it's a film about these two friends who reconnect, and one of them is terminally ill, and she wants her friend to be there with her in the room next door when she kills herself, euthanizes herself. And it's really just a series of conversations between the two of them, and they're talking about their sort of their past and everything like that. And it works really well. It's actually a really, really good film. And that's about 2/3 of it. And the final third is the aftermath of the whole act and everything as well, and get into all that, which again, really good. It was very enjoyable. I had a little trouble with some of the dialogue, though. I don't know if it was written in Spanish and translated. But some of it sounded just a little stilted, but they got away with it, obviously, because there was a very good team behind it and everything as well. And the room double bill that I saw The Front Room as well, which is almost like a Southern Gothic horror film. It's about you would think so, yeah. It was about this couple, this young couple who have been living together, and I think it's their grandmother. No, his stepmother. Her husband dies, and in the will, for the father who has died, his house is being left to them on the provision that they look after. No, they've been left money. That's it, on the provision that they'll look after his stepmother, and she's this horrible scraggly woman, and she obviously she's like an arch manipulator and everything as well, and like she has to come and live with them and everything, and it's the way that she kind of draws her stepson back into her sphere of influence and everything. But I don't think it works particularly well. The main horror character in it, or as a horror as well, by the way, I should have said that. The stepmother is kind of just a wee bit too over the top, and it's just there's not a lot of nuance in there, so you kind of know what's going on and the way that it all plays out and everything, and it's putting husband against wife and all this, and it's like it just wasn't particularly, it just didn't hit well. And I know Simi was the same. He didn't think it was a particularly good horror film either, which is a bit of a shame, really. So,
and also, if Simmy's saying it's not good, I dread to think what the quality is, because he recommended Ambulance.
yeah, true, yeah. And I've been watching a couple of old films as well, a couple of Cary Grant films. Watched My Favourite Wife, which
that's so nice.
It's a cracking film about a man who has just remarried because his wife was lost at sea 7 years ago. And on the very day that he gets married, his wife turns up again, and hilarity ensues over the course of about 90 minutes. And that was an excellent movie. So on the back of that, just with normal streaming services, these ones were on iPlayer. I think they've been on there for a good couple of years now because they get punted on there during the pandemic.
Do you have some cracking films on there?
Yeah. And I mean, these ones have been on for a good few years as well. So I watched Mr. Blanding Builds His Dream House as well, which is another Cary Grant film. It's about a man and his family who are living in this wee small apartment in New York, and they decide rather than doing up the apartment, they're going to move to Connecticut and build the dream house. So they buy a house, and of course the house is a piece of crap, and they basically have to knock it down and everything, and it's just all the stuff to do with building the house and all their expectations, and they're all going nuts about what they want, 4 bedrooms with bathrooms and all this sort of stuff. And it's just that, the costs spiral out of control.
Yeah.
And excuse me, the best friend is their lawyer, and he's saying, "No, don't do this and don't do that and all that," and it's all to do with that. There's a lot of slapstick in it as well and things like that. So yeah, that was really, really good. Excuse me,
that sounds so good.
Yeah,
I honestly think iPlayer is I know obviously there's a lot of debate around the license fee and stuff like that, but I do think iPlayer has some cracking. If you're looking for something like that you wouldn't get on another, you wouldn't find it on your Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever. So actually, they do have access to some really good films on there. I might actually sit and watch My Favourite Wife this afternoon. I feel like I'm in a Cary Grant kind of mood now that you said that.
Oh no, it's a good show, definitely. It's one of the few services where you get a real mix because and there is an opportunity there for a service to show more of these type of films. Where I know Talking Pictures TV do a certain amount of old films, but they seem to focus more on British ones. And there's the odd American sort of older film that comes in as well. But there's not really anywhere in the UK where you can see a lot of these older films, and even things like the BBC used to show lots of like Laurel and Hardy and all this sort of stuff. And you just don't see that at all now on British screens. So you would have thought that somebody would have said, well, we can I know, like I said, Talking Pictures TV, but they would show all of these older films from the 30s and 40s that still have a certain amount of life to them, and they just don't get viewings at all. And occasionally people do search them out if they're wanting to see, do a wee sort of binge of Katharine Hepburn films, for instance, that kind of thing. And it's difficult to do. I suppose YouTube's there for that sort of thing as well, but it's not quite the same. It's
No, I definitely I came across that Legend TV as well, which is a random Sky channel, and they have been showing a lot of the Hammer horrors. So I've been watching a few of them as well.
Yeah.
I really enjoy the Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing ones. I really like those sort of films, but again, it's on at maybe 10 o'clock on a Sunday night, and they're sort of one a week. They show them, but it's not easy to access as well if you don't have Sky. Maybe you don't have that channel. They're not consistent every week, and they're still maybe the 70s or whatever, so they're not even as far back as the ones you're talking about. So it is quite hard to, if you're in the mood for something like that, which I now am now that you've said that, it can be quite hard to actually track down these films unless you've got you've found a DVD somewhere or whatever, which it is a useful service, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely is. So television wise, it has been quite interesting. There's a lot of stuff just starting or being around, but having said that, the first thing is the final season of Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan, which is on Amazon. The whole 4 seasons of that is on Amazon. They decided to stop after 4 seasons. It could have gone on and on. It's one of these, there's
because there's quite a lot of books, isn't there?
Yes, there definitely is. Yeah, but the TV series doesn't directly takes stories from it. It takes certain elements from them as well. So it's like a younger Jack Ryan before he is sort of like high up in the CIA and everything. So, but it was obviously starting to get there towards the end. I'd watched the previous 3 seasons. They were all 8 episodes long, which is a decent length, which I will come back to in a moment in regard to something else. And the last one was only 6 episodes long. So, and it fitted the story very nicely because it didn't need to be 8 episodes long. Yeah. And it was quite a fitting ending to it. It's one of these sort of spy, espionage, political thrillers that works really well. It doesn't stray too much from the central story, and you can go like totally into it and really enjoy it. Obviously, with the shit show that is American politics these days, it's complete. It's a complete fabrication. It's not real life at all or anything like that. But it is very good. It's very, very enjoyable. On the same vein, I've been starting watching The Diplomat again on Netflix. It's season 2 of that. Kerry Russell, Rufus Sewell drama, which I've watched 2, maybe 3 episodes on, and it just follows on from the first season. There's a big sort of incident in the first season, and that's what that's all about. Basically, the Kerry Russell character has been made ambassador to the Court of St. James. So she's an ambassador in London, and she's been put into that position because she's being groomed as the next vice president. Is
that not what Gregory Peck is in The Omen?
Yes. Yeah, pretty much. Same idea. Yes, exactly. Yeah. There's a lack of devil children in this one, but you know, it's the same idea. Okay. But yes, I think traditionally it was seen as that. That was the kind of posting that they would put people into in order to give them more of a high profile, but hopefully not be involved in anything political or scandalous or anything like that. So it's a mix. There's a wee bit of comedy in there. There's quite a lot of drama in there. Obviously, things are going on with the British government and all that as well. And it works really well. It's a really, really good series as well. And that just churns along quite nicely. It's very well written, very well acted. Rufus Sewell, again, he's a bit like Hugh Grant in respect that he's now acting as if he's the age he is actually at. There's no pretense about, you know, he's got grey hair, he looks older. He's not trying to, this craggy face with the chestnut brown hair on top or anything like that.
Can I just say, men of Hollywood, everyone looks infinitely sexier with grey hair. Just let it grow out. Stop the just for men. Everyone looks better with grey hair, apart from women, according to Hollywood.
Well, yes, there is that, but I don't see anything wrong with women with grey hair as well. I think they look equally as attractive as they do with brown or blonde or
Mirren, they're embracing the grey. I love it. I think it's great. As somebody who's had like white hair basically since I was 17, the grey hair on men though I'm a big fan of.
Yeah. So for a little light relief from watching spy stuff, I've started watching Dr. Odyssey on Disney. It's a drama series set on a luxury cruise liner.
I've seen the posters for this. Has it got the guy from Dawson's Creek in it? Yes.
Yes. And Don Johnson as well. He's the captain of the ship.
God, of course he is.
Yep, it's trash and it's rubbish, and it's 45 minutes long, and you can watch it and just go, yeah, fair enough.
Is it like a serious medical drama, or is it just sort of...
There's some serious medical issues in it, like people get heart attacks, and like for instance, what the last episode I watched, like it's all themed around what the passengers are. Like for instance, the last one, it was Plastic Surgery Week, because all these people who were having plastic surgery are coming along to, get a bit of sea air for a week, and a lot of them are bandaged up and things like that. And there's obviously complications from plastic surgery procedures as well, so that formed part of the drama as well. But there's like sort of love interest things and all this going on as well. And it's perfectly passable. Leslie can't believe that I'm watching it because
I was going to say, I don't think I can either.
I occasionally like watching these sort of things because it's very easy to watch, and it's almost like a palate cleanser from watching a horror film or that kind of thing. And in a similar vein, I've been watching Rivals as well, the Jilly Cooper.
That's going to be my Christmas binge watch. I've already decided, because So in my first husband's club, they've been talking about it, and I've decided I'm going to keep it because I just want to sit and watch it all in a oneer, soak it all up. Danny Dyer with a mustache. I'm very excited.
Yes, and a bit of a pot belly as well. He's acting as
the dad bod.
Yeah, sort of fuller figure there. It is not going to trouble you intellectually. I'll say that much.
Oh, I didn't expect it to.
No,
I just want glitz and glamour and a bit of sex.
Yeah. As it has been described, it's a bit of an 80s themed bonk fest as well, which was quite good.
That's tremendous.
Yeah. There's lots of buttocks in it, put it that way. Male and female. So yeah, it doesn't discriminate between either. Yes. And it's good fun. It really is. It is really good fun. I'm really enjoying it as well. I didn't expect to, but yeah, the cast in it play it very straight. So they're not, they know exactly what they're in. They know exactly what type of program it is, but they play it totally straight, right down the line, So there's no winking to camera or anything like that. So yeah, it's just very good. David Tennant's excellent in it. He's sort of one of pretty much the main character as well. So yeah, that was very good. And I was looking for a wee comedy to watch as well. So I started watching Young Sheldon, which is the prequel to The Big Bang Theory. It's hilarious. It's just brilliant. It's completely different to The Big Bang Theory in that it's a family set comedy in Texas in the 1990s. So there's lots of references to like Apple computers, the first instances of all these sort of devices and things like that, and family life and everything as well. And obviously, young Sheldon is a 9-year-old genius, whereas his sister, in one memorable sequence, she's very aware of herself, so she knows she's pretty and everything. So there's one sequence where she's sitting brushing her hair and she's counting up to 100 strokes and all that, and she finishes and he turns around to her and says, "You missed 11 numbers. How do you not know how to count?" So
that's cracking.
Yeah, so there's lots of really funny one-liners in there, and it's 20 minutes long as well per episode, so you can just watch one and just wee sort of space. So yeah, it's really good, and there's about, I think, 6 seasons or something of that on Netflix. So that's one that'll be sort of watching occasionally over the next couple of months, to say the least, because you don't want to totally binge these things. You want to sort of spread them out. Same with Rivals. They're all there, but we're just watching them like maybe one a week, just so it's all nice and spread out. And to finish, I've been watching Citadel as well. Now, that was from last year. There was an initial program to that. It's a spy organization drama, which is set in sort of different time periods. It's the Russo brothers. It's the thing that their company did once they set up, after they did all the Marvel stuff when they moved away from that. So it was designed to be a series that would have a number of different offshoots from it. Now, the first season
as everything is these days.
Well, yeah, but they were upfront about it, saying they were going to have a US-based show, which was the first one, which, again, it was only 6 episodes, so it works really, really nicely. And they said, we're going to do these other shows. They're going to be based in other countries and everything. So, and it's going to be other actors, and they'll be tangentially related to the other shows. But it's been done in such a way that you don't need to have a history of each. You don't need to watch them all in order to just watch one of them and enjoy it. So last month they had Citadel Diana, which was set in Italy. It was all about the Italian organization. It's the opposite of Citadel. Now, this all comes about because the whole premise of the first one is this organization who's the sort of anti-Citadel, and they're both rival spy organizations, and one tries to wipe the other one out. So Citadel Diana is about this young Italian woman whose family is killed in an air crash, and it's blamed on one of the spy organizations. So she was trying to find out the truth about that, and she starts to infiltrate organizations. It was actually pretty decent. It started off okay. It kind of dipped maybe for an episode, but the last 2 or 3 episodes really good. And only just this week there's been a 3rd series out called Citadel Honey Bunny, which is set in India, which is is actually pretty good as well. And again, it's a completely different story, although, like I say, tangentially involved. There's a young daughter in it, and she's in the first one as an adult character. So this is set around about the year 2000 and actually goes back to the 90s. And it's about the relationship between these two people in the Indian film industry, who also do sort of side gigs, sort of spy type work as well. And it's actually pretty good. There's a lot of really cool action in it as well. Both sort of male and females get like totally involved in it. And it works as well. What I found though is, with the Italian one and the Indian one, I've made sure that I've put on the original language and watched it with subtitles, because
the dubbing's terrible.
The dubbing doesn't particularly work for me. For a number of people, it's fine. They don't care about that. They'd rather have that than subtitles. But I prefer to have the subtitles in the original
I'd rather read the
language
subs,
as well. So, and yeah, it works pretty well. And again, these are shows that they're not outstaying their welcome. 6 episodes long. They work really well because they've only got so much of a story to tell, and they don't want to just pad it out, which brings me on to my last thing I'm going to talk about, which is the Day of the Jackal.
Oh, I've not watched this. I've downloaded it. Is it? Oh God, is it Urban?
No. The Day of the Jackal is obviously a Frederick Forsyth book.
Yes,
which was
it's a film.
It was about 400 pages long, I think it was. It was made into a film in the early 70s with Edward Fox. Nice wee 2-hour film, really good, all about the attempted assassination of Charles de Gaulle.
Yes.
And there was also a Bruce Willis version of it as well, The Jackal.
Was there?
Yeah. 2000s, I think that was. It wasn't particularly good. But this version of it is set in present day, so therefore it's not Charles de Gaulle. And it's 10 hours long. Basically trying to tell the same story. And the way they tell the same story is they introduce subplots, they take their time with a lot of stuff. It starts off very, very well. He's on a job in the first maybe 15 or 20 minutes. It's really tense and it's really interesting the way that they actually do it. But I've only watched the first episode, but I'm kind of struggling to see how they're going to sustain this for 10 episodes. And it's gone wildly away from the premise of the original book and film, because that was all about the character, how he was going about setting up the assassination attempt. So, but this one already is going off in about a couple of different tangents and things like that as well. But I will reserve judgment on it, but I'm kind of thinking that could maybe have been like a wee mini series or something, maybe 4-6 hours, but 10 seems like an awful lot. You're kind of wondering, where is this going to go? You know?
Yeah. I actually, because I've also been watching Graham Norton now that it started back up again, because I do like how he sort of brings conversations around with his guests. And obviously the episode with Eddie Redmayne had Saoirse Ronan, Paul Mescal and Denzel Washington on it as well, obviously talking about really big films, so it was really good. But Eddie Redmayne was talking about his training and, you know, how he was taught how to follow and avoid being followed and stuff like that. And they showed you a clip, and actually the clip that they showed you, it reminded me of the opening to The Killer.
Yes.
So that's why I thought, I'll give that a go. And I remember my dad having the book and having the film on video, obviously going back a few years. I thought, I'll give this a go. Didn't realise it was 10 parts, so that does seem like quite a lot.
Yeah, it is a bit of a commitment, to be honest. But I'm willing to give it a go. And it does look beautiful. It's a very, very well-made drama. But I don't know, there was a very good review of it today by Camilla Long in the Sunday Times, and it points out basically everything that I've been saying there, and Leslie's been saying pretty much. When she started watching, she's watching for half an hour, she says, how is this 10 hours? What are we going to do here? But I'm willing to give it a go. It's very watchable, put it that way. I don't think I'll be disappointed with that, but I'll be interested to hear what you think of it when you've actually given it a bit of a watched a couple.
I definitely intend to do that, because I've recorded that and I've recorded the franchise, the new Armando Iannucci with Daniel Brühl and Billy Magnussen.
Oh, right. Yeah. I've not seen that yet. That's on the list.
They're only half an hour an episode, so I thought, okay, fly through that. So I'll give them a go. It's just interesting because like that helicopter heist that I watched was 8 episodes and they were varying in length between, say, 35 and 45 minutes. So I feel like you really fly through them. I feel like the minute you hit the hour mark, the series should sort of naturally compress and become shorter, not go the other way. But I'll give it a go. I definitely will give it a go. It's a film that I feel, or it's a sort of premise rather that I feel like I'm familiar with, even if I haven't actually read the book, you know. So
yeah, and it's all obviously it's quite interesting because I've been editing the Hitman podcast and we've been discussing about how hitmen don't exist. Yeah. This is one of these ones that actually sort of solidified that whole myth of the hitman that you can hire kind of idea. So it's all good fun. Yeah, it's all right. So the only book I have been reading is it's an old book. It is called Film. So I really should have known what that was by a guy called Roger Manvell, and it is a Pelican book from 1948 about film in Britain in the sort of post-war times.
That sounds phenomenal.
Yeah, Roger Manvell was the first director of the BFI, and he wrote and lectured about film for years and years. His CV is immense. I think you would actually like him because he wrote books about Germans as well, about Nazis and everything as well. So there's lots of biographies and things.
Oh my god!
Because he spent a lot of time in Germany. You're probably familiar with him, but you're just pretending not to be.
I swear to God. I'm actually between that and the fact that everything Simmy sends me on Instagram or TikTok or whatever is somehow related to Germany or whatever. I'm actually scared.
Yeah, so this is... I bought the book for about 50 pence, I think it was, in a second-hand shop. Yeah, it was ages ago I got it, and it's only just now that I'm actually getting around to reading it. And it's almost like a survey of what the film sort of industry and is like within Britain and elsewhere. And it's really, really interesting because it gives you some of it in terms of the number of people who are going and the number of like cinemas there are in the country, and it's hundreds of thousands of people going to the cinema every week just because it's one of the main forms of entertainment at that point. I mean, the main visual form of entertainment. And there's lots of discussion in it about how different interest groups look at it. Obviously, you've got your sort of auteurs who are looking to bring forward the best product that they can, whereas the distributors and the film companies are really just interested in having a product there that can get bums on seats. So not in that respect, nothing much has changed. But it's interesting with looking at the sort of the attitudes of the time and all that. And because there were so many cinemas, there were spaces for art house cinemas in big sort of metropolitan areas like the likes of London and Glasgow. They can have these cinemas that are not going to have massive big crowds coming in, but they've had enough of a turnover that it made them very popular and profitable. And it meant that these smaller films, and especially foreign language films, were starting to get shown in these places because they would still make money. Whereas now, obviously, it's a completely different model now in terms of, showing certain types of films and all. That's more obviously streaming and everything. And there is the occasional art house cinema and small sort of well-established cinema that shows these things. Obviously, we are quite lucky in the fact that we've got the GFT on our doorstep, but a lot of places don't have that sort of service. It's just whatever they are able to see. Like there was something, it was the Kermode and Mayo podcast, and there was somebody writing into that, and they were living in Orkney, and they read out the screen times, or there's a one-screen cinema in Orkney, and it was showing The Unseen, Saoirse Ronan film. Unseen? Yeah.
The Outrun.
Yeah, sorry, The Outrun it was, yes. Yeah. And that was the only film it was showing. There was nothing else. For a 10-day period,
Really?
Afternoon and evening, it was that, because it was shot
It's set
in
there.
the area, and
Yeah.
that was the only thing. And it was all sorts of blockbusters out at the time, and they weren't showing any of them. They were only showing the one film, and that was just an example of, like, screening a certain type of, or just screening one film, to the exclusion of all others. And it's obviously an extreme example of it, but it's kind of what we are faced with on a sort of a weekly basis when, you go to the cinema, and if there is a massive big release, that's all you're going to see, because it's taking up, I mean, was it, Cineworld has 17, 18 screens, and it's not unknown for it to be occupying maybe 6 or 7 screens if it's a big film, especially like the likes of the Avengers. When that film came out, I reckon there was 42 different screenings at Cineworld on one day of that.
Easily. And funnily enough, when I went to see Longlegs, I think it was a school holiday, and Despicable Me 4 was out. So unbelievably, there was like one showing of Longlegs at like 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning, because the rest of the cinema was Despicable Me 4.
Yeah, I know. Which, it's a business cinema, but it would be nice to have. But again, if they put on counter programming and people don't turn up, then that's an empty cinema that they could have filled with paying customers. So yeah, it's, if people have to support these services more than anything else, they have to get involved.
And it's interesting that you're saying counter programming, because it's, to me, something like Longlegs, because we obviously have spoken about this in our summer podcast. Summer was really great for horror. There was so many different horror films out that performed really well, that will do really well sort of on streaming services and stuff like that. So to me, something like Longlegs shouldn't feel like counter programming, because it's not. Yes, it's a challenging watch, and yes, it's not sort of mainstream, as it were, but it's, I don't know what, it's interesting that you're calling it that, just because to me that's a horror. That's something that you would go and see. But now, because of the likes of these franchises, whether it's your Despicable Me, your big releases like your Gladiator 2, your Wickeds, they're going to dominate the cinema, and anything that's basically not on that scale is seen as counter programming. Which I was watching, it was like some sort of, I can't remember what it was. It was some red carpet thing, and they were doing interviews with people. And this is a half story, because I can't remember who it was that said it. But I'm pretty sure it was an actor was saying that, we've got the sort of low budget indies and we've got the big blockbusters, but we're really missing this middle ground.
Oh yeah.
And obviously the film we're going to talk about, that would probably be seen as counter programming as well, because it's not a big sort of mainstream. It's not going to be for everyone. And I think that's interesting that word's been used to describe everything that basically isn't like a sort of like Marvel or Disney or something. Do you know, it's just an interesting use of the phrase.
Yeah, there's been a slight shift in that, but not in terms of cinema. The sort of mid-ground, the mid-budget film is now kind of a staple on the streaming services. You see it on Netflix every other week. They are bringing out an action film, which is not sort of top tier, and it's got a lesser budget and things like that. And it's maybe like 20 million, maybe 30 million that's spent on it. And that goes straight to the streaming service. It doesn't go anywhere near a cinema. And lots of dramas that sort of, you would talk about high-end dramas, and they would cost sort of mid.
Like your Tudor number 2, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that kind of thing. It's very unusual for them to actually get into cinemas now. They're not funded, like you say. It doesn't happen. But there is a place for them on streaming services, and that's why the likes of Richard Linklater and Wes Anderson are going to streaming services and working with them, because they can get their projects made, and it's not these massive Michael Bay type numbers or Zack Snyder numbers. They are regarded as being films that would probably do okay at the cinema, not particularly well. Probably wouldn't be number one films or anything, but they would be there for a couple of weeks, and then they would just disappear, and then they'd go to streaming service. Streaming service is saying, well, we'll guarantee your budget, so you don't need to, go about for 6 months trying to get your money from, 20 different sources. We'll pony up for all of it, and it'll go on our service and it'll stay in our service, but it won't see the inside of a cinema. And they're going, well, fair enough. Yep, we can do that,
Or it might, like in the case of Blitz and Conclave's getting a cinema release as well, but they're both tied into Apple TV, I think. So it's almost like we'll do you a limited run, and then it's straight on to Apple TV in this case. So they're sort of kind of wordy dramas, I suppose you would call them both. So they probably would be sort of mid-ground if they hit the cinema. They might get a wee shot on the festival circuit through likes of, obviously that was London Film Festival. But yeah, it's like you're going to belong exclusively on Apple TV or whatever, because Apple TV obviously struck a deal with, what was it, Killers of the Flower Moon, and what was the other big Oscar winner, the German film set in the concentration camp? Yeah, so Killers of the Flower Moon was the first one that was tied into Apple TV, and I felt like that was quite a big zone of interest. That's what it's called.
Yeah. Okay.
So they were sort of tied into, I think it was Apple, and that felt quite high level. That felt like quite a big thing for a streamer to be shown those types of films. But you're right, it's like they'll put the money up front, you'll get your wee limited sort of festival run or whatever, and then it's, back to the small screen, as it were.
Yes, yeah, but it gets the films out there and they're...
Sure, it gets them made.
Yes, and they're easily available as well, which is always a good thing. So yes, and there is a real market for them, because when you look at the listings on all of the services, they now all seem to do like a sort of top 10 idea of their own products. And if one of these mid-budget films comes out, or they've bought one in from somewhere else, it's maybe about 2 or 3 years old, it goes to like number 1, number 2 in their charts right away in the first week, because people are wanting to see these type of things. But obviously don't want to go to the cinema and having to spend 20, 30 quid to get to see it.
And interestingly, I filled in the Film Stories magazine annual cinema survey the other day, because they'd put it out on Twitter or X, and the questions this year were so interesting. So it was like, how often do you go to cinema, like what do you spend, all that sort of thing. And then it was things like, have you ever had a film interrupted by any other audience member? And did you go to a member of staff, and were they able to resolve the problem? And I thought that's so telling of the cinema experience now. And I think for a lot of people, if you want to enjoy an indie film or a sort of lower budget film, you don't want to do that while somebody's chatting on their phone or chomping away on sweeties. So just get it at home when it comes to Apple TV, because then you can, have the settings exactly as you want. So I think it, interesting times. We've obviously spoken about this before.
Yes, yeah, no, definitely. But that's quite an interesting thing, having a survey about cinemas, because usually that's kind of ignored. It's just your sort of general questions. But yeah, it's pretty good.